Welcome to the Fiber Instrument Sales podcast, Fiber Instrument Sales sponsored podcast. My name's Bruno, and with me is Bob Licari.
Hey, how's it going?
Bob and I head up the training department here at Fiber Instrument Sales, so hopefully some of you that are listening have taken the class, or if not, hop on in. Bob, you just got back from where last week?
Nashville.
I was in Baltimore doing our training thing. Bob, how long you been here?
I've been here 8 years in January, it'll be.
So you started in
2016.
16?
Yeah. And I'll be getting my 3-week vacation now. I'm a made man. I got the 3 weeks now.
Well, you got to go through the ceremony. It's like a... Hopefully they don't kill you at the end like they did in... was it Goodfellas or no? That was the movie.
Oh, yeah, Goodfellas.
No, was it Goodfellas or was it Casino? Which one?
I thought it was Goodfellas,
Yeah,
where Joe Pesci
Pesci.
He was a made man and they killed him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I'll be De Niro, you can be Pesci.
Oh, boy.
I've been here since 1996, so 27 years. Bob, where'd you come from? What were you doing before this?
Before this, I was a fiber characterization technician for Fiberdyne.
So explain what a fiber characterization technician does.
Well, what they do is, basically what I did was I traveled around the country with another person and tested long spans of single mode fiber. I'm talking, 50, 60, 70 miles long at times. Mm-hmm. We would do bidirectional OTDR, we would do bidirectional loss testing, bidirectional ORL, optical return loss. Mm-hmm. And also the big thing that we did, I think, is what we were always mainly contracted for, was the PMD and CD testing.
Polarization maintaining, dispersion.
And chromatic dispersion.
Chromatic.
Yeah.
So these were fibers that were going to be utilized that had been in for years, and they wanted to know what they were capable of?
Correct.
If you did bidirectional, the other guy on the other end had the same equipment that you had?
The only difference is the A side, if you will, had the CD and PMD tester, and the B side would have the light to send to the tester.
Oh, I got you. So they weren't exactly duplicates of each other?
No.
All right. Very expensive equipment, though.
But that's how, that type of equipment has costed upwards of 50, 60 grand or more. Yeah. That's why, and once you do that kind of test, you don't have to do it again. And so we would just be contracted to do that. And, I gained a lot of experience out there, not just how to clean fiber and how to undo macro bends and all that, but how to use a GPS properly.
Yeah, right. I started before GPSs. I used maps. Some of us remember maps. What did you do before that? Tell them, people be interested.
I used to be an adjunct professor at a community college.
History.
I used to teach history and political science.
So anytime I say something historic, I always get corrected by you, which is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So
I joke to some people, it's like my current job now is like a hybrid of my last 2 jobs, teaching and fiber.
All right. Yeah.
Now I teach about fiber.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the thing that is always like my number one pet peeve in fiber, and that's the cleanliness aspect.
Because it's so preventable.
It's preventable, and it's the number one issue in fiber optics.
Yep.
I always state in my class, and I can't remember where this came from, but I remember one of the reps that was in there from one class I took years ago, he said they did an independent survey, and like greater than 85% of all fiber outages and problems are fiber contamination related. So I always throw that one out there because it's the easiest thing to possibly do. And nothing, if we were to talk high end about other stuff, OTDRs or splicers or WDMs, it all comes back to cleanliness is the first thing. If we can't get past cleanliness, there's no reason to do other podcasts.
Yeah.
So... biggest nightmare in your history of cleanliness? What was your biggest, when you were doing characterization or?
Well, it wasn't exactly a cleanliness issue, but it was perceived as one. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think we were at Beale Air Force Base in Calhoun, California. I think it was Beale.
This is for the characterization?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And every single connector was hand polished.
Yeah.
And they were trying to move over to single mode, and nothing was passing. And no matter how much I cleaned, it wouldn't get better. And at the time, I didn't know they were hand polished.
Yeah. Was this all ORL issues?
ORL issues, yeah.
What standard did you have to meet for optical return loss? What was the numbers?
It was 30 dB.
That's not that hard to achieve, right?
Well, it's just for anything that's 10 gig or higher, usually I think it's 30.
Yeah, I've got new information on
maybe it's 40.
200 gig and 400 gig now. It's starting to get really stringent.
Probably 32.
It's some of them are like 49.
Really?
It depends on the
On the
number of
distance.
and the number of connections.
Yeah. Because if you're running like a 500,000 foot run, you're going to get easily ORL that's 38, 37. But in my line of work, I don't know if it's drastically different, but I know that in my former line of work, when we were testing 50 miles, you could sometimes get a failing reflection midway through the span, but because it's so far away from the A side or the B side, once that reflection gets to the equipment,
It's not doing
it has attenuated to the point where it's within spec.
Okay.
Which was always a weird thing for me.
So probably we should back up because we're talking about cleanliness. Yeah, we just jumped right into optical return loss.
Well, that's the subject of the podcast.
So the bottom line is clean, 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 clean. Everything I do is that's my mantra. My biggest problem with cleanliness that I had was it was a killer. I was doing a class and I give out cleaners, as you do for the OTDRs, and I had cleaners for the groups, and we're doing test boxes. We're using the OTDR, and I said, well, make sure you clean the inside connector on the OTDR and the connector on the launch or the test box. And the guy raises his hand and says, your OTDR is not working. And I said, oh, you know how often those boxes get broken and shipping. So I thought, oh, maybe the box is broken. So I tried another box, and that one didn't work at all. And so I took a microscope and I put a female adapter on it and put it into the port. And I said, did you clean both sides? And he goes, no, I cleaned the fiber. And I said, did you clean the connector on the inside of the OTDR? He goes, no. I said, well, you shattered it. And that was a $600 repair that day. So that's my biggest heartbreak when it comes personally to return loss. And I've seen lots of places where it fails too, but that one cost our department $600.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that's the most important thing is cleaning the test ports.
Yeah, and when I talk about cleanliness, you've got the wet and the dry clean, and obviously the wet clean is the best bottom line clean. Ever since the one-click cleaners, though, cleanliness hasn't been any easier. You get 525 clicks. You just replace the cleaner. It is a dry clean. One of the things that I do, and I think you've probably done it, is I carry 2 dry cleaners with me, and I make one of them a wet cleaner, and I put alcohol on the end of the wet one, give it a couple shots, and then I move to the dry one and hit it again to dry up any alcohol that was left behind.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'd like to say I thought of it, but I didn't.
I used to be just a strict cleat top guy. But you can't clean inside ports.
That's the thing. The cleat tops were good at their time. I'm not trying to disparage on them, but they clean the male connectors. They don't do the females. Where the one-click cleaners, you can go inside the female port, and then you can do that with foam swabs or different swabs too. But I like the ability to do the females and the males with the one-click. I also find that the cleat tops have a lot of material. And every time you advance it, right, and you use it, you're basically using the middle, and you're just wasting a lot of the cleaning.
Oh, yeah,
tape.
sure.
And they can be expensive. I mean,
When times were tough, I only did this once. I was out in the field, and I ran out of tape. I actually had to rewind it backwards and used it on the other side.
I didn't know you could do that.
You can do it. It's a pain. It takes a while to do.
You have to physically spin it, or you can turn it around?
You turn it around, and then you just simply you just flip it around and put the empty side on the top and put the empty wheel on the other side. Yeah.
Not recommended. You didn't hear that here on this podcast. So what are we talking about? I mean, the bottom line is dirty connectors will create high attenuation, high loss of signal, so shorten our distance. The damage thing, I mean, that alone, pitch, chips, scratches, shatters. And then now we talk about ORL, and one of the things I always struggle with ORL is the negative and positive.
I try not to worry about it.
I don't either, because it's inverse of itself.
It's a number, and you want to be 30 dB or better. So
for those of you that are coming here for the first time or for never heard of ORL, optical return loss, or what we mean is light going backwards or opposite the current direction that we want it to. And this will happen in fiber anytime we have a gap or a change in index of refraction or change of material. So glass to air is a big one. Connectors are terrible, for return loss. And what return loss does, on top of a dirty connector doing the damages and creating attenuation, is it will create, the one thing people don't understand, well, they do, but you can't eliminate optical return loss, right? That's the one thing. Well, I need to get rid of it. No, you can reduce it into working standards. But
So-
you can't eliminate it, just like attenuation.
Like Barry Sanders, you can't stop them. You can just hope to contain them.
Hope to keep them to 200 yards, right?
So that's like, how the ORL is.
You're just dating yourself on age. So optical return loss, it leads to a lot of things. It destroys our expensive equipment over time. It heats up the lasers. It creates bit errors. It shortens our distances. So the thing I've noticed, Bob, is especially in the classes, is everyone seems to know what attenuation is. Almost nobody knows what ORL is.
I know.
And what a lot of people don't realize is an OTDR will give you not only attenuation and distance, it will give you optical return loss.
Yes.
Now, it's not as accurate as a true ORL tester.
Meter. True, but
I think it's plus or minus 1 dB.
it's a good indicator for sure.
What do you recommend if you are just looking to just shoot optical return loss?
If you just want to find an optical return
Yeah.
loss for equipment, I always would go with the
Expo?
the Expo. Now it's the Max 945,
Yeah.
but it's the program that they run is called Fast Test.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not
And
familiar with that.
You have a pair of them. You have one on one side, one on the other, and if they link up on the same fiber, you establish continuity, which is always good. You establish loss bidirectionally, and you establish bidirectional optical return loss, as well as distance.
So it's a double-ended test, not
Really a
unlike
triple-ended test. Distance, loss, and ORL.
No, I mean double-ended as in there's equipment on each side.
Oh, yes,
compared to with an OTR with just.
And it can do the bidirectional test within 5 seconds.
Okay.
It was a lifesaver for us.
All right. So, optical return loss is directly affected by the amount of contaminant and how dirty your connector is. I mean, I always say dirt on a connector is got 8 or 9 different problems. One of them is creating a lot of return loss. I mean, obviously, the more attenuation you're creating, the more light you're going to in turn send straight back.
Oh, yeah.
So we banter around different names for polishes on connectors too. We have PC. Well, the original connectors were stainless steel, flat.
Yeah.
Problem with those is you could never get anything more than better. See, this is another thing that confused me with ORL. They always say better, right? Now, is better less or better more? Better's less.
Better is less.
But when you say better, most of the time you're talking about more.
Yeah.
And then when the number's negative, so
It is more. Or it isn't more. I don't know.
it's less. So you can say, well, better than. Well, better than means less.
Yeah.
So it can be confusing. And again, then there's optical return loss is a positive number, but reflections or back reflections are a negative number. And they're just inverses. You're just clipping
We don't
off.
claim to have all the answers here.
I just go with the negatives.
Yeah.
So you have stainless steel polishes, you have PC, hand polish like you mentioned, UPC, ultra, and APC, angled. One of the things people assume, though, do you get this in class? The better the polish, the less attenuation.
No.
I get this all the time where, if I go from a UPC to an APC, I'll have better attenuation. I'll have lower loss.
Not necessarily.
No, not at all.
No.
The pass-fail standards for any of those are the same.
Yeah.
It's funny when you look at pass-fail. Typically, it's like 0.3 on individual connectors or half a dB on OTDR. I was looking up one the other day. They say 0.15 for individual. That's a tough standard, but most people don't realize the better the polish, the better, again, the less return loss we have.
Yeah.
It's just not necessarily an attenuation thing.
We could just say the higher quality the polish, the lower the reflection.
Yeah, basically. So APCs have the lowest optical return loss.
Yep.
And they are what color?
Green.
Green, yeah. So we know to plug green to green.
Green to green and blue to blue.
And blue to green is no go, right? No bueno.
Breaking one of the 10 commandments of fiber.
I had I'm not going to use any names, but a certain cable company that I know of bought an OTDR. I won't use their three-letter name, and I got a phone call. Oh, the OTDR we bought is junk. It doesn't work. And I went over, and it was an APC connection. And from 20 feet away, I saw they had a blue connector in there. So UPC day, that was $1,000 repair that day because they smashed the fiber. Not only did they have terrible reflections, they destroyed the connection in there.
I've had a couple close calls in my trainings where I would just get done telling them that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would still have the blue plugged into the green, but
No damage.
No damage.
You're lucky they didn't push it in very hard.
or at least the OTDR still works. So
Yeah. So cleanliness is just my bugaboo, and we've got what, dry clean. So what I got to figure that dry one-click cleaner does for me about 90%. I don't know if it cleans about 90% of the dirt.
yeah, I always say light and medium duty. cleaning.
Yeah. And we know that the longer dirt is on a piece of glass, the harder it is to remove it. It creates a bond. You know, I always say when you wash a window, in those, let's say you're doing spring cleaning, you don't just use a paper towel, right? You use a liquid that breaks the bond with the material. So, you know, we can always move to a wet clean, and you're familiar with the star clean with the wet to dry.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, if you really want to do perfection in cleanliness, and really UPCs and APCs need to be so clean. And the other problem I have too is people thinking that when it comes out of the bag or off the spool, it's brand new, that they don't need to be cleaned.
There's dust in the dust caps.
Yeah, it's a terrible name. I like to use protective cap.
Yeah.
But everything should be cleaned all the time, because really if you clean something and it's dirty, you did something good. If you clean something and it's clean, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with cleaning a clean connector. There's everything wrong with not cleaning a dirty connection. So the wet to dry we're talking about, I mean, if you want to follow the de facto standard, what you got, like a little platen, like on those little cubies, and you're supposed to put a little dot of alcohol, or even not, some people don't even like the alcohol, the cleaning material, and you're supposed to like spin the connector in the dirt into the puddle and then pull it out in a star into the dry, wet to dry. I mean, that's getting a little extreme. Just getting people to one click to me is
It's a big deal.
oh my God. How many job sites have you been on in your past where you unplug connectors and it looked like they were thrown across a sidewalk or
Yeah.
something? I mean, and you think, how are these even?
Well, yeah, I've had instances where we did a little quick investigation for a local customer, and I shot the OTDR with their fiber, and halfway through there's a huge like -25, -27 reflection, and they point me to where it is, and it's two ST connectors literally in a barn. Hanging from the ceiling, and I had to climb up a ladder, cleaned the hell out of them with
Did you look at 'em
alcohol,
all?
with wipes. Nope, I didn't have a microscope. Cleaned the heck out of them with alcohol and wipes 2-3 times. Reflections stayed the same.
Stayed negative
Stayed the
27.
same, and I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work, but everything worked because they're probably running 10 megs, maybe 100 megs.
Yeah, was it multi or single mode?
It was multi-mode.
Yeah.
All in one.
I mean, there's no real great way to test multi-mode for ORL, but yeah, that's pretty bad. So what do we talk about the reflection standards, right? So a stainless connector, when we measure optical return loss, you're talking -16 to -20.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why we got away stainless or flat, and we polish them on glass, and you're making a mirror into a mirror, right? Typically, I don't know what you saw, I typically see on a PC in the middle 30s,
Yeah.
neg 30. Again, remember, the more negative, the farther from zero, the better, right?
Yeah.
The more negative, the less. So I'd see in the mid 30s.
Yeah.
You know, they had to be clean to get to that.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to note that there is no industry standard for PCs, because they're not really considered low reflections, even though they're considerably less than a stainless.
Yeah. What's that tell you? What's that say these days? Nothing.
It's you know, hand polishing should be a thing of the past.
Is that why there's no standard on them? Because they are hand polished and
They're hand
everything's
PCs,
happenstance.
Yeah, PC. I mean, it's whatever you get, you get. You know, how good is your hand? How good were you with
Yeah.
the polishing? But when we step up to like UPCs, no, there's a standard.
Yeah.
Like those have to meet minimum standards. And when I started back in the early 1900s, it was like -50 was what everyone did. Now, typically, us included, we do -55. So that's a tremendous decrease. Now, it's not the complete elimination of reflections. And then APCs are
You're -65.
65 is about the best. You can see a little better than that.
Right? You get some in the neg 70s.
I have had some in the 70s. That's rare.
And keep in mind that when you get them in the 70s, your OTDR might mistake it for a fusion splice. That's happened a bunch of times.
That's a good point. I had one happen the other day. And I said, I know that's a connector. It was such low reflectivity that I thought it was a splice. Yeah, I had that just the other day on my, was I using my, I think it was the Expo I was using. Because we have Expo, we have Enritsu, we have Viavi. AFL. Yeah, but like, if this is going to be the launch off podcast, to me, cleanliness is the first thing we have to talk about. It's so many damn issues in the industry.
And it's so preventable with just proper education and proper cleaning techniques.
It is. And the other thing is, again, we're destroying connectors, and people say, well, I messed up a $5 patch cord, throw it away. Yeah, but the equipment side, you're wrecking equipment. This is not our job to wreck equipment. So, dry, of course. I like to make sure I have the ability to wet and dry. And I don't know what your opinion is on microscopes, but I always want to have a microscope.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing that we do in class.
Well, what a microscope will save you from is over cleaning.
True.
Because like if you're going to clean something and you test it and it's still bad, you're going to clean it again. You're going to clean it again. But if you get that microscope out there and you see a scratch over the core, now you know how the cleaning in the world isn't going to matter.
Right.
I got to replace that connector.
True. Yeah, true. I mean, look, you've got your probes and your handheld scopes. In your handheld scope, you can get a 400 power, $120 maybe.
100, yeah, less than that.
Comes with the adapters for all 4 major connectors. The probe scope we came out, and we got one sitting here we've got one that looks like a little gun here. It's so cool. It's got its built-in screen. What is this about price-wise?
2200.
2200.
Yeah.
I've seen probes up to 28, $3,000.
$5,000 even.
Oh, if you talk MPO, multi-fiber connectors, yeah.
But yeah, $3,500 or so.
So I never recommend over purchasing. If you have installers, everyone should have a $100 microscope. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Should you have a probe scope? It's good to have one within the company or 2. Now remember, now we have the new IEC standard for end face analysis.
Yeah.
So not only, they never asked for that when you were doing it, right?
No.
Because
we only were suggested to microscope.
Yeah, but it was just eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
So they've gotten away from just eyeballs. I mean, we're in a very high-end business, and yet we're using our eyes to tell you if it's a good or bad polish.
Yeah.
And now, guys, we have software, IEC, I think it's 31-300-3-35, or I can't remember.
601-3, it doesn't matter what they.
Yeah. So basically it describes 4 areas in your fiber. You got your core, your cladding, your epoxy ring, and your contact zone, which is the area of the the area of the ceramic ferrule that's touching the other one. And they all have attributes, and you can change those, right? There's defects and scratches, I think, in the core.
Defects are dirt and scratches are scratches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we know that the core is the most stringent area. So, and there's a single and multi-mode pass fails, and the single mode one for the core and the zone A is like 0 scratches, nothing visible.
Because remember, with your single mode networks, you have some real high speed, high bandwidth stuff going on. The higher the transmission speed, the more sensitive the equipment is to back reflection. Yeah, in fact, that's a great segue, because I was trying to get some number. I don't know about you. I'm not a big memorize every damn number, but with the advent of 200 gig and 400 gig and things are just speeding up, the things that are being kind of restricted are insertion loss, right? So the actual dB loss or attenuation, like right here, I'm looking at 100 gig at 5 dB. This 200 gig spec is at 4 dB. But in conjunction with that, the return loss is having to get better, right? Again, there's that better. So this one was 21 here, now it's down to 25. This is in a WDM system. Now, parallel optics, you're talking 35 at 100 gig, 37. And the other interesting one is, this is really, so I didn't understand this at first. Number of discrete reflections above 55. In other words, basically, how many connector pairs do you have? Yeah. So if you have one connector pair, right, this is at 400 gig parallel optics, that was at negative 37. If you have a second set of connectors, it's 42.
So a lot of us are doing like 3,
Yeah.
Switch to panel, panel to backbone, backbone to patch cord again. So we'll have 2 patch cords so that's 3. At 4, you're talking negative 45. So, I mean, they're clamping down. This isn't just plug it in and get the 30s. Now it goes all the way up to 10 connections at 49. I mean, I don't know if I've seen 10 pairs of connectors. And it's another thing too, it's funny here is we mentioned LC and, not LC, UPC and EPC, negative 55, negative 65. The GR362 standard says negative 40 and negative 60, as does the TIA 568.3-D.
And that's negative 40 for UPC,
and negative 60 for
APC.
Right. So what they're leaving from the manufacturer is better than what the standard is. And again, this all just goes down to cleanliness. With these tighter standards, with these higher speeds, and with single mode fiber running more power, it's just going to get tighter and tighter. And we're starting to see it clamp down on multi-mode now too.
Yeah.
So, I just can't say enough about it. Now, back to that software that will do the end face. What we're seeing now is a lot of OTDR tests required. So they're going to want the OTDR bidirectional test, which could be a topic for another class.
Yeah.
Or another podcast. Thank you. I forgot where I was.
Yeah.
You got to remember, though, do you think for a second those $100 microscopes are going to be able to do that software?
No.
I mean, that's why I said the probes are the things that are going to be able to do the end face analysis. I mean, so if you're required, we're seeing more and more testing where not only do we shoot the fiber, but we have to put the end face pictures and the pass-fail results with the certification. And again, you're gonna have to have a probe. You're gonna have to spend the money. Now, what brings them down and up are features, right? So,
Well, it depends on the overlay software and
wireless or wired.
Wireless or wired,
Right.
Yep. How many tips, all that stuff. MPP, MPO will cost you more.
Huge money. Do you remember the EXO one that they used to have? It had 3 positions where it would do 1 through 4, 5 through, what is that?
5 through 8.
5 through 8, 9 through 12.
Yeah.
It would do 3 images. Now they do the full
shot,
end
which is
face.
a nice improvement.
And another thing, I mean, if we don't think reflections are an issue, every single mode MPO is what?
APC.
Yeah, every single mode is APC. And now there's another topic because now we're talking about wiring patterns, right?
Yeah.
Key up to key down for the 12.
This is a nice smorgasbord for the podcast.
Yeah, so you have the A. What's the A? A is for MPOs, or A is key up to key down.
It's straight through polarity.
Yeah, because the angles have to be opposite.
Yeah.
Where the B pattern, which is easier,
Key up to key up.
key up to key up,
Yeah.
but you can't do that because your angles wouldn't match.
Yeah.
So that's
our listeners might not know about that yet.
yeah. Well, that's we gotta give them a little taste of everything.
You're right.
Couple questions, Bob.
Yes.
Not to just stick on cleanliness all the time. Question for you: your worst personal trip ever? What was the worst trip you ever took, and why? And why?
My worst trip ever, and I hope that I don't offend anybody. The area was beautiful. The people were friendly. I just had a bad run of things. Was traveling to the Navajo
that was for
reservation.
us.
No, that was for Fiberdyne.
Oh, okay.
And first off, it's a dry area, so I couldn't get any alcohol. I couldn't get any beer, any scotch.
You never do that, right?
No, well, no. Back then I did. Now I'm sober as a priest.
Yeah.
But so what happened was I got lost. What happened was I was driving. We were done for the day. I was following one of the Navajo techs, and they were going to lead me out of the area because we were basically going off of GPS coordinates. There wasn't any.
You're in the desert.
Yeah, there wasn't any physical address. It was like there's a little hut somewhere off a highway.
You are here.
Yeah, and so anyways, we're driving on a highway. Made it to a main road, and there's an accident or something, and they block off one whole lane of traffic. And I'm sitting there for literally about probably a half an hour without moving, and finally. The tech gets out of his truck, who was in front of me. He walks over to my car and he says, if we take this side road over here, I know a way that we can get around this and we'll be fine. I'm like, all right. So I start driving on this dirt road, and it's like getting dark. It's like dusk. It's not quite dark out. And this guy is flying down this dirt road in his pickup truck. He's going so fast that the dirt he's kicking up, I lose him. I can't tell where he is.
You got a rental, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a rental SUV, all-wheel drive.
Oh, you had SUV.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, my GPS tells me to turn left. And I don't know where the guy was that I was following. He's way in front of me. And so I just went by the GPS and turned left, but it was actually a trail in the middle of the woods. And here I am driving. Now it's dark out. The moon is out.
You still don't know where he is yet?
Still, I lost him. I'm just trying to get home now, back to the hotel. And
I might have turned around.
well, I couldn't. There was nowhere to go.
Right.
So I kind of like committed myself to driving through this like weird trail. And I was driving over rocks at one point. I was driving through a trail where it was so narrow the tree branches were scraping the side of the car. And I'm thinking I'm going to get caught in here and stuck. And I don't know where I am. I'm somewhere in the woods in the Navajo reservation.
What was he driving?
A pickup truck.
Well, he had the same problems.
Yeah, well, he never took that left.
Oh,
I'd lost him, so I didn't know where to go, and I saw a left-hand turn, and I thought maybe he turned here because I knew in the general conception of the area, I knew the highway was to the left of me. Yeah. So eventually, I get to a clearing, and I have no idea where I am. So I was going to call my traveling partner and have him.
You had cell service?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I did have cell service. I was going to call him and tell him, I was going to give him my GPS coordinates in the woods and basically be like, come and find me. And so as I call him, I dial the number and I saw headlights through the woods and it was the highway. And when I saw the highway, I let up a huge scream, like of relief, like, finally, And I'm driving down the highway, all of a sudden like a minute or two go by and I realized, I had called Sean, so I just hung the phone up. And I got to the hotel and he was terrified. He thought I was murdered.
Is Sean the guy you were following or Sean is the guy you were working with?
He's the guy I'm working with.
Okay.
He was already at the hotel. What happened was when I was locked in the wood, lost in the woods, the tech called Sean, my partner, and said, I lost Bob. I'm worried about him because he's in skinwalker territory. And those are the Native Americans who are very old school, like they live in the woods.
They get out.
And if they see a random person, they look at that as an infringement on their territory and they're going to rough you up. So
just don't stop.
Yeah, so I got, and he said when I called, he heard me say like, oh crap, like that. And I just let out a large scream.
Because you found the highway.
Yeah, but he thought I just got murdered.
Yeah.
He said the hair, and knowing that story, he said that the hair on the back of his neck stood up. Yeah. He was ready to call our boss and tell him like Bob's something happened to Bob.
Bob's dead.
But yeah, then I remember that was the same night. It was a Thursday. We were close to Gallup, New Mexico. And we drove like a half an hour to Gallup just because there was like an Applebee's there and it was Thursday night. Yeah. It was like I was finally back in modern civilization. I was having boneless wings and a beer, and there was football on TV.
And you were 10 seconds from death.
Yeah, and I was like, this is, what a turn of events.
So that's your best story.
Yeah, because anywhere we went, there was no chains. There was like nothing, like just random mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop hotels. Which, nothing wrong with that, but sometimes, they're not the most comfortable, those hotels.
Yeah, I know here, I never got to go, but 3M had a place, kind of like our place that we have in Brightside, but they had a really big resort in Minnesota. I can't remember the name of it. I don't think that was back in the golden days when there was profit. And I remember they sent a group up and Kirk went, senior VP of sales, and he took Valerie at the time. Well, she had that job, and they went snowmobiling. And now myself, Kirk, a mess of us have snowmobiles up here, so he's all big tough guy. And Val's like, Valerie, who's now, owner of FIS Blue, kind of a big shot at the time, even bigger now, he just takes off with the group and leaves her behind. She's not a big snowmobiler, a little girl. I mean, she gets lost in the middle of the woods in Minnesota. Oh, yeah, Kirk. And and she saw some headlights, some other snowmobilers, and they got her and they said, "We'll take you back, lady." And she got back, and he's back there, and he goes, first thing out of his mouth, he's having a beer or something. He's like, well, where you been?
She probably hit him.
Yeah, she was like, I'm going to kill you. Because she could, like, hear, like, this wind.
Yeah.
She was just like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. She took, like you, the wrong turn.
Yeah.
I'll say my worst story for another day.
Okay.
Favorite sport? Baseball. Yeah, I know. Favorite team?
Yankees.
Hockey. Let's get it straight. Hockey.
Oh, that's your favorite sport.
Okay. Ever been on a flight where you thought you were going to die?
Yes. Yes. Well, the closest I've come to thinking I was going to die.
Well, here's the thing. You think you're going to die, and the pilot's up there, reading a comic book.
Well, here's what happened.
Know.
This was back when the U.S. Airways was still around, and I was flying on a little small propeller plane going from Syracuse to Philadelphia in the middle of winter.
I did that.
And then we had a flight from Philly to Atlanta. So
Philadelphia, worst airport in America.
Just about.
Yeah.
Just about. Although I don't know. I think maybe O'Hare might be the worst.
No, I'll take O'Hare over.
But anyways, let's get to the topic here. So I'm on the plane. It has maybe 20 people on. I know that because I started counting the people on the plane just to see how many people were going to die in this plane.
Was it bad weather?
Yeah, it was bad weather, and every time the little propeller plane tried to go through the clouds to land, the whole plane would just shake. Yeah. Now, I've experienced turbulence.
Yeah.
Turbulence I actually like because it like rocks me to sleep.
I don't agree with that, but
that's how much I fly. So, anyways, at first I'm thinking no big deal, and the turbulence at first started off not too bad. There was like a little girl somewhere on the plane that was laughing. She thought it was fun because the plane was bobbing up and down, right? And then it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And now this little girl is screaming, crying hysterically.
Yeah, she figured it out.
This old lady next to me, like 70s or 80s, she's like doing the rosary, like praying, and I'm trying to hold it together. You know, I want to freak out.
Super cool.
But I'm a grown man. If people hear a grown man screaming and crying, that's when it's time to panic.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to hold it together, like, okay, this is fine, no big deal. And I'm like,
everyday stuff.
I'm thinking that, like, in my head, I'm like terrified. I'm like, this plane's not going to make it. There's no way this guy's going to land this plane. He did it probably three different times to try to go through that storm.
He had to loop around 3 times.
I forget what he did.
Yeah.
Unless he must have found a weak spot in the storm and finally got down the 4th time. We got on the ground, but that was the worst. Other than that,
have you ever had anyone clap when they land? I've been in planes where they clap.
Yeah, that happens a lot on Southwest flights.
Yeah, when I'm in a really bad one, I can actually I swear to you, I can taste blood in my mouth.
Really?
I started thinking, why am I doing this? This was stupid, and I can taste blood in my mouth. I've had it happen a dozen times.
Yeah.
And then I land. I'm like, okay, but I had the same one going into Philly, similar thing. But then you've got to get yourself on the next flight.
Yeah. I
had to make myself, force myself to get on the next flight.
Oh, you got it, yeah.
And it was smooth after that, but who knew?
Who knows?
Who knew? So,
I'm surprised I haven't been on a flight where someone flipped out or freaked out.
I know you see those videos all the time.
Yeah.
I know I keep thinking I'm going to be on one of those ones where somebody loses their mind, tries to open the door or something.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
Well, some person died on a flight once I was on.
Someone died?
Yeah, an old person.
Just passed away in the seat?
Yeah.
Really?
They covered him up and everything. They act like everything was normal.
I was sitting next to a girl one day and she was talkative. She told me the same thing. She had a guy next to her, next to her in the middle seat, and he died. And she rang the bell for the stewardess and was like, I think he's dead.
Flight attendant, John.
Flight attendant. Yeah. I'm sorry. I can tell who's older. And she rang the bell. She came over. She said, this guy, and they were quiet about it. And he died. And they didn't even cover him up. They just made it look like he was asleep.
Oh my God!
So no one would freak out.
Bernie's
yeah. So no one would freak out in the flight, and then they disembarked, and then just
probably for us they covered the person up.
Yeah, I think they didn't want to do that.
I think they were in first class. What a way to die!
Yeah, it's a way to go.
What a way to go!
How many have you flown first class?
Oh yeah.
How many times?
Several.
I've only
probably
flown
20 times.
3 times.
Really? That's it?
Yeah. 3-4 times. It's always the shortest flights.
Yeah.
I remember Syracuse to Detroit, an hour and a half. How about California?
I've had a couple where I flew from Detroit to LA, Detroit to Seattle in first class. I got a nice steak salad meal with wine.
Don't want to hear about it. Don't want to hear about it.
Extra snacks.
Jeff, what do you think Bob will say for favorite band? The Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell them something they wouldn't know about Bob Licari.
I mean, no one knows anything about me, right? I do play guitar.
What hand?
Left-handed.
Just like?
Paul McCartney. That was just coincidental, though.
Yeah.
I'm a closet lefty.
A closeted lefty, but
Yeah.
you're right-handed, right?
I shoot pool left-handed, though.
Really?
And I brush my teeth left-handed.
Played second base,
Played second base.
and you were like an all-star, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know. Aren't we all in high school? I can hit the ball.
All right, back to cleanliness.
Yes.
Isopropyl alcohol or high-end cleaners?
Isopropyl alcohol is my go-to.
Me too.
You can't go wrong with the original and best.
So FIS started, the only two products, they had $500, the owner, Frank, and the only two products he sold was alcohol and wipes.
Yep.
That was it. This whole 7 businesses, fiber optic place, fiber optic behemoth here started with $500, and it was alcohol and the wipes. Now, do you like the Kim wipes, the low lints, or the zero lints?
Well, I don't use the zero lints
I never
often.
do either.
But I imagine they're better.
But have you ever had a problem with Kim wipes?
No.
No, me
Very little, if
I'm a big isopropyl alcohol guy. Now, with the... So we have high-end cleaners, right? And as Bob cleans his hands with the isopropyl, we have high-end cleaners that are like 4 ounces for like $20 or whatever that price is. And you're talking like $2 for alcohol or something. And one of the big arguments they'll make, and I get it, you have to justify it, is isopropyl's an anhydrous solution. So, okay, what do we sell? We sell 99.99% pure alcohol.
Yeah.
Anhydrous means it's trying to draw water from the air. Right? So what happens is if you leave the cap off or open, now it's 98%, because it's drawing water.
Yeah.
My thought is just put the cap back on it.
Yeah.
You know, I just...
And, 97% is still pretty damn good.
Yeah. Considering most of your off-the-shelf stuff,
70, 90.
Best case 90, typically 70, yeah.
We should put 99% on the bottle.
Yeah, we should, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
I know there's you typically can't buy that purity from drugstores.
No, you can't.
And there's a problem with people drinking it, actually. It's what I was told.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm like you, a traditionalist. The low lint wipes, everyone thinks those wipes are lint free. They're low lint, but they're excellent. And isopropyl.
Yeah.
Again, there's their detractors for it. In a perfect world, we wet clean everything, but we know it's not perfect. Just getting somebody to clean it, period.
Yeah. And not on their jeans.
Or their shirt.
Yeah.
I had guys lick it. I had a guy that he needed attenuation, okay, because sometimes you have too much power. He would take a marker, a brown marker, and he would color the end of it to attenuate, to create more loss. Different colors were different attenuation. So he'd have like blue and green. Yeah, I'm not making this up. There's some stuff. One of the worst things I ever saw was a guy, he didn't understand why his fiber worked. He says, I spliced it. I don't understand why it's not working. I can't make this up. He used a wire nut. You're familiar with it for copper?
Yeah.
He used a wire nut and put the fibers in there and screwed them together, and he couldn't I swear to you, this is the stuff I see. Yeah.
Wow.
You only
I mean, if that's what if that's all you know is with copper and how that works, then.
Really, though?
I know.
So, yeah, he had them all, and they're just crunched in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you might want to use a fusion or mechanical splice here. And I showed him what those were. He's like, oh, I saw a guy try to fusion splice with a lighter once.
Oh, no.
I swear to you, he had one guy hold the lighter, and he held the fibers over it, and he thought he was going to fusion splice. Yeah, I've seen some hairy stuff, but
Wow.
licking connectors, shirts. I always thought about having where your shirt pocket is. I always
Little
thought about
cleaning thing.
making a cleaning dispenser there, and then right where your pocket is, you could wipe it there and then pull down and rip off the old one. So you can have a fiber shirt.
Yeah. We should sell them.
The other thing I want to talk about is, Bob, you've done how many? 20 videos at least?
Quite a few.
I've done several. So guys, if you go to our website, fiberinstrumentsales.com, or if you go to YouTube and look us up, you got one of the things, and this is just an extension of what we do. Our technical support, our department, all the tech support we give out is free. We want to help the people that are purchasing from us. It's a symbiotic relationship. So we have the ability to do Zoom meetings, so we can demo something, we can help you with something. Feel free to reach out to any of us for technical support too. For me and Bob and Jeff, hasta la vista.